Assalamualaikum and a very good morning to Sir Muhammad Faiz and my fellow classmates. Today, my group and I will be present the assessment of the case study for the course of Corporate Ethics at the M599 about the topic of Apple supplier and label practices. Without wasting any time, let me introduce my group member. My group members consist of 4 members, including myself. My group members are Adilah binti Zulkifli, Irene bin John, Nur Balqis binti Norizal, and myself, Nurul Najihah binti Mat Saat. For the case study about the topic of Apple supplier and label practices, we will be discuss six discussion questions. For the first question will be discussed is, do you think Apple should be responsible for ethical lapses made by individual further down its supply chain? Why or not? Secondly, for the second question, we will be discussed on should Apple continue to work with supplier in an effort to change practices, or should they stop working with every supplier even the concession one to make sure no bad apple are getting through. Explain your reasoning. Thirdly, for the third question, we will take into account the ethical track record of companies when making purchases. Why or not? Moreover, for the fourth question, will be discussed on, can you think of other product or brand that really unethically questionable business practices? Do you think consumers are turned off by their track record, or they largely indifferent to it? Explain. For the fifth question, we will be discussed on would knowing that a product was produced under ethically questionable condition affect your decision to purchase it? Explain your example. And lastly, for the sixth question, will be discussed, which the question is, if you were part of a third-party regulating body, how will you deal with the ethical questionable business practice of multinational corporations like Apple? Will you feel obligated to do something, or do you think solution rests with the company themselves? Explain your reasoning. For this assessment will be discussed more for the further detail on the discussion question in the Apple case study, in the case study of the Apple.
Hi, I am Adilah binti Zulkifli and I'll be presenting on the summary part. Moving on to the summary. Apple is a very well-known brand and a very famous brand among the people throughout the world. The unstoppable demand from the millions of loyal consumers has made Apple as one of the companies operation with the largest annual profit in 2015, that amounting $52 billion. However, behind the success of the company, they short tortuous or complex business ethics that has been practiced. Even though Apple is originally from the America or USA, their component sourcing and the factory production is made abroad or in the foreign country, in which the situation has been criticized as it brings harms to the workers as well as to the environments. Tin has become the main components in the Apple's product. Tin is known to be a natural resources from Indonesia. A study has been proved that a bunch of the children workers were hired to work in these unsafe situations. For instance, like digging the teeth by using hands in mines, which is prone to the landslide that could bury the workers alive. Even the BBC also has come out with the investigation saying that this working situation is very dangerous. However, Apple defends that most of the transaction in selling teeth is through the middleman, and they only have the control over the monitoring and regulating the component sources. Apple claims that they can easily get rid of the Indonesian mines, but it will not bring any goods to the conditions. Apple somehow ongoing in receiving criticism due to the demand made by the consumer, even though they have shown the reports in improvement of suppliers' working conditions.
Hi, I'm Nur Balqis. So for today, I will present about ethics and the ethics theories involved. So basically, what is ethics? There are many formal definitions of ethics, So as one of it, by Stanwyck and Stanwyck, 2009, defined ethics as the values an individual use to interpret whether any particular action or behavior that they are used is considered acceptable or appropriate. But it also outlined the moral duty and obligation that any human should be practiced. Okay, so for the next is ethic theory. So what is ethic theory? According to Barbara McKinnon 2012, a good reasoning in ethics involves either implicit or explicit reference to an ethical theory. So basically, an ethical theory is a systematic exposition of a particular view about what is the nature and basis of good or right. So ethical theory provides reason or norms for judging an act or behavior to be right or wrong and attempts to give a justification for this norm. So it provides ethical principle or guideline that embody certain values. This can be used to decide in particular cases what action should be chosen and carried out. Okay, so the ethics theory that involved in this article was utilitarianism. Utilitarianism theory, a theory that people should behave in a way that produce the greatest pleasure for the greatest number of people. So they can create a greatest total utility. This approach basically has to rely on the cost and benefit analysis of every person involved in the act. So it can to find out whether to act would result in the greatest good to the greatest number of people as it has the most beneficial consequence. Basically, many corporation or company also use this theory in their defense when they are being criticized for apply this or for being ethical misconduct, arguing that they can create a greater utility for people than harming the people itself. So as for it, however, teleology approach basically is predictive and nobody can predict the precise future since that one act should result in many outcome or consequence. So this approach basically assume that there is a measurement in everything they do compared to the deontological approach. And then this approach will justify a lot of people conduct which are not justified by the deontological approach. This approach would justify killing a person for the good of greater number of people or outsourcing production to other countries if 100 people suffer while other 100,000 people will be benefiting from it. So as a result, teleology approach followers would most probably find this Apple business approach or business strategies acceptable as within the ethical norms because for them, their manufacturing offer hundreds of working opportunities or position for the people all around the world and thousands of people like their gadget and using it, their product. So compared to a number of few people that getting hurt or damaged by their manufacturing business or business strategy or practice, their manufacturing business strategy will create or still create more utility for others people.
My name is Nurul Najihah binti Mat Saat and I will be discussed for the first discussion question. The first discussion question asked is, do you think Apple should be responsible for ethical lapses made by individuals further down its supply chain? Why or why not? In my opinion, yes, Apple should be liable for the ethical lapse because the suppliers are actually working to create a smartphone compartment owned by Apple. For the first discussion question, I refer based on the chapter 5, which is the integrity system. In the integrity system, they have two types of control system, which is compliance orientation and value orientation. And I will take the value orientation as the answer. First is the development of share value. A business development a statement of share value using a process similar to the one described above. This provides guidelines that replace the hard and fast rule of compliance code. Statements in value orientation code have a logical function different from the statement in code of compliance. Principle of professional and or organizational conduct specify compliance circumstances in compliance codes. Time, agent, location, purpose, manner, and others. This provides sufficient content to set out professional conduct principles as rules that can be breached. This is turn allow them to be supported by punishment for infringement. Ideal of the profession or organization set the minimum. These are pitched. Communities can and should be defined by their expression as well as by their threshold standard. Secondly, support for employees. The role of the organization shifts from monitoring and then punishing misconduct to finding way to open a venue for employees to realize key value in their daily activity. See statement of value set out excellence or aspiration. Excellence is not something that needs to be reached overnight. It's required basic motivations, attitudes, belief, and objectives to be retrod. In order to help those who seek to realize ideals, companies need to identify obstacles to achieving ideas and then develop support structure. Values-based approach shift from punishing behavior that falls below the minimum to provide those who strive for the excellence with the collective support. And third, locking in on continual improvement. From John Dewey, the philosopher, characterized moral responsibility as a drive to make ourselves better. In their approach, the specific twist is to fold what has been learned from the past into meeting new challenges in the future. This required changing behavior and eventually changing character. The ultimate goal of cooperation orientation towards excellence is continuous improvement. The view of these moral ecologists define the framework and channel this avenger. What is needed at this stage is to develop concrete program and strategy to identify, remove, and stay on the track for excellent barrier to excellence. Besides that, I will continue for the second discussion question. The second discussion question asks, should Apple continue to work with the suppliers in an effort to change practices, or should they stop working with every supplier, even the conscientious one, to make sure no bad apples are getting through? Explain your reasoning. In my answer, as it is one of the most crucial parties in business organization, Apple should continue working with the suppliers. The importance of the suppliers can be seen through it. Firstly, deliver of quality material on time. In every organization, there are things that every organization need to be on time to fulfill the quotation and provide excellent service toward the customer. What is great about having an excellent connection with the supplier is that the supplier will give the organization as the priority. The supplier will deliver the good in advance. Moreover, the supplier will make sure that the organization get the best good or the best product. The advantage, however, extends very far to the stage of production. It will prevent returns, quickly manufacture products, and surely produce quality product that the client or the customer will love. Secondly is to ensure the smooth selling production. Starting the production phase when the organization have everything needed is easy, and surely the good connection with supplier will build the confidence that the raw materials are of high quality. The risk of stopping production or rejecting finished product, both of which result in lost revenue, is significantly reduced. After office relocation or other major changes to the organization company, the organization will meet their goal without difficulty and will enjoy easier rebirths. And thirdly is customer satisfaction. The customer satisfaction is another significant outcome in every organization. The customer surely will enjoy do the business with the organization because the organization are able to deliver goods and service on time and free from defect. The customer are going to feel that their money has been spent well in their spend towards the organization, and it is surely increase the productivity and increase the high satisfaction of the customer.
So, based on the discussion question number 3, yes, they should. As a, because due to it, if the consumer or customer also monitor the production process of the company, it will help the company to enforce its regulation and make sure the regulation will follow the precise law or the required law. Other than that, on the other hand, if the consumer will be expected to have an ethical record, then the company basically will definitely follow the expectation which help to establish the rules for the industry. As what has been stated in the article, the Apple has an account following the loyal customer. So as what we can say from these words that, for example, being a fan of the Apple product, if Apple did something unethical, as for example, continuing buying the tins from the supplier that use the child labor in order to save the money, then we as a customer, even the loyal one, should take an action for it. And we should start thinking whether it is the right decision for us to purchase the product from the Apple. If the consumer, continue to buy this product from an ethical company, then it shows that we are in a favor of these unethical norms or act. Therefore, I think before making a decision to buy or to purchase some product, we as a consumer should take an ethical track record of a company into the consideration.
So my name is Irene. The question given is, can you think of other products or brands that rely on ethical, questionable business practices? Do you think consumers are turned off by their track record, or are they largely indifferent to it? So as for me, product or brand that I think rely on ethical, questionable business practice is Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola, which is a soft drink manufacturers company, which is listed in 5 of the lowest ranking products. It is considered as ethical, questionable business practices since the brand scored poorly across the rating system for failing to address issues including human rights, animal rights, and environmental rights. As for me, surely I think consumers are turned off by their track record because every business are required to have business ethics, which is the study of appropriate businesses policies and practices regarding potentially controversial subjects including corporate governance, insider trading, discrimination, bribery, corporate social responsibility, and fiduciary responsibilities. In the case of Coca-Cola products, consumer nowadays tends to take ethical track record into account because people are increasingly concerned about the environmental, where a majority of the consumers claiming to reject brands whose environmental reputation falls short on their expectation. Not only that, consumers now want business to be pushed in a different direction than merely making a profit. The values are fast becoming key asset in helping boost brand value whilst projecting a positive corporate image, and by doing a businesses can demonstrate a clear sense of purpose.
Moving on to the discussion number 5. Based on the question, the answer would be definitely a yes. As we know, ethics is above the law.
And being a consumer, we have a specific ethical standard in mind, and we expect the organization or the businesses to match and surpass it. We as consumer will reward with higher purchase intention for the products in which for the businesses that can achieve the ethical standards. As human with ethical practices, we would not want to support any businesses by buying products or services that is conducted inhumanly, like theft, manipulations, having child labor, enforced labor, abusive behavior, dumping toxic as waste, violating the workers' right, test product on animals, and etc. This is because this kind of conduct can give bad impacts towards the every level of community, which can be towards the workers, the environments, as well as towards the society. Also, due to the selfishness of consumer that wanted to purchase, it might cause the workers to work in a dangerous situation that might cause death, injuries, or disabilities, or their rights that is being violated, like not being paid accordingly. Whereas for the environmental perspective, it will be causing scarcity in natural resources, water pollution, animal abuse, and for the society aspects, it would make them living in an unhealthy environment, or their right as customer is being abused, like manipulated or being lied to. And this is what we not wanted to happen at all. As consumer, we would definitely wanted our money that is invested in buying the products or services on the company that bring the positive impact to us, to the world, and not harm. Being ethical is about being logical with conscience. If we tend to support businesses that is conducted without ethics, this will cause the company to keep on manufacturing or producing the products unethically. As to them, profit and demand is what matter the most. However, if in contrast, the company were taking into account on their unethical practices and revise back their way of conducting the businesses in order on how to win the customers back by being honest when conducting the businesses. For instance of unethical business conduct in producing product is Coca-Cola, which has had a long history of workers' right violation at its bottling plants. It is currently under 2 boycott calls linked to the issue at its plants in Colombia. It also has the poor record on the environment, as being accused of taking the water supplies from the rural communities and falsifying the environmental data. This same goes to the Apple's situations in which they are using the workers of the miners to work in such a very dangerous conditions.
To the last question, which is, if you're part of the third-party regulating body, how will you deal with the ethical questionable business practices of multinational corporations like Apple? Would you feel obligated to do something, or do you think the solution rests with the company themselves? Okay, as a third-party regulating body, in order to deal with the questionable business practices, the first thing that need to be worked on is to develop policies regarding the ethical business practices. It is including provides a reasonable regulatory environment to the multi-corporation like Apple. This is where the standard of ethical behavior vary from country to country, where the companies must weigh the value of their home country against the need to show the tolerance and acceptance of practices in foreign regions where they do business. Even though it might be hard to come out with single set of universal value, but the multinational corporations can adopt the practices that work in a global marketplace. Provide a reasonable regulatory environment also necessary because of economic globalization and technological change are posing new ethical challenges to the multinational corporations. Multinational corporations undergo a dynamic and complex global market where right and wrongs could be interpreted as widely different. Laws governing certain businesses within an organization in an individual country could have its variance and inconsistencies. Nevertheless, when other countries are internationally concerned, the intensity of inconsistency is even more diverse.
In conclusion, based on the discussion from the case study of the Apple supplier and labor practice, we can conclude as being ethical in business is actually no different than being ethical in private life, as it is important for business people to be ethical. Business managers today have many reasons to be concerned with their organization ethical standards. Business problems, however, are not addressed easily by ordinary ethical reasoning. Business company, economic, and organizational characteristics differentiate how business problems are handled. For example, employer and employee relationship, social responsibility, and others. Managing business effectively without compromising ethics is the real challenge because it is required compromise in between employer and employee relationship and also in between the whole organization and also the supplier. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you.